Lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Comic Podcast. My name's Ryan. I got my co-host Dylan with me. Today we're going to be talking about Green Arrow Longbow Hunters by Mike Grell, which is actually I think it's the book that turned me into a Green Arrow fan. If I'm honest, I remember picking this up when I was I think probably like 12 or 13. I think it started my love of the character, and then I went on to read a lot of the other stuff. But that's why I picked it for this week. Also, to coincide with the interview with Mike Grell. We're also going to be talking about what we read this week. There's a lot of awesome stuff that came out this week.
A lot of good stuff. Everything that I read this week, I enjoyed.
This was a solid week, I think. I was telling Nick that, and he hadn't... I took all my books home Monday night, and I had them read before I came to work Tuesday morning. I told him, I was like, dude, this is it's not like a huge week, but everything that came out that I read was really good.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy with it, and that's why I messaged you. I was like, dude, make sure you read some of these books so we can talk about it. So yeah, before we get into Green Arrow, let's talk about some of the books that came out this week. One of my highlights for the week had to have been Stillwater by Zdarsky.
I was totally taken by surprise.
Really?
Honestly. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't interested in it until Jen talked about it, and I was like, okay, but maybe I'll read it. Then you told me to read it, and I knew that I still had the advance from Image that I had downloaded onto my iPad, so I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to read it. I read it on Thursday, and wow.
Yeah, dude, and I mean, first of all, I love Zdarsky, and his writing it's some of my favorite. I've talked about his Daredevil run being one of my favorite Marvel comics right now, and then you pair him with Ramon Perez, did a Tale of Sand, which was an early Jim Henson script, and I think it came out from Archaea, which is through Boom. It was beautiful. His art was phenomenal. That to me, the writing was a very, very weird book. Mario told me to read it, and I was like, I trust his opinion, so he let me borrow it. I read it, and I'm like, the story's weird, but the art is phenomenal. So then when I found out Zdarsky was pairing up with him, I'm like, dude, this is fucking, I can't ignore it, And I think I even added it to my pull list and then took it off, and I'm just like, fuck, maybe I'll just wait for the trade, whatever. But I knew I was going to read it anyway from the shop, and I read it, and I was just like, this is fucking amazing. And I put it back on my pull list. I'm like, if for some reason I stop working at the shop, I want to make sure I'm continuing to get this book. That's what usually makes the cut on my pull list. I think okay, what if tomorrow I stopped working at the shop? Am I going to still want to read this book every month instead of waiting for the trade? And that's how I decide what stays on my
right. It's a matter of whether or not I'm here.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, not to get too into it, but this, I knew what the premise was.
That's what kind of turned me off to it. This is why I don't read synopses. I read the synopsis and I was like, meh. There's just something about it just didn't appeal to me. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad you told me to read it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what appealed to me was that I'm like, okay, nobody dies, but what is Zdarsky gonna do with it? That's what intrigued me, because Zdarsky is a fantastic writer. I think and it seems like everybody knows him for his comedy, right? Because he's obviously, if you follow him on social media, that dude has got one of the most fucking unique sense of humors I've ever seen. And it shows in his art on Sex Criminals with Fraction. Like I said, though, his Daredevil is not full of humor. It's more dramatic. And I'm like, what is he going to do with this? And like I said, Ramon Perez, his art is fantastic. I'm like, this is going to be good. I am surprised with how much I enjoyed it. I knew it. I had a feeling it was going to be good. I just didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did.
It flowed really well.
Yeah.
The end was crazy.
Yeah.
The end was crazy. I really appreciate the dialogue between Daniel and his friend. His name escapes me, but I just got Daniel. Daniel is the main character. The conversations that they have during the road trip is freaking amazing. Because I'm like, because that I feel like if situations were different, you and I would have a conversation like that. You know what I mean? Wait, this is a setup. This is all a setup. It's very realistic in that sense. And then, the art's phenomenal. Really kinetic, especially during the driving scenes I pictured. And dude, I'm legitimately surprised. I am glad I did end up reading this. It was really fantastic.
I know that's why I messaged you. Like, if I message you like ahead of the podcast and I'm like, "Are you reading this?" It's only because I think it'd be something interesting to talk about, And like after I read it, I'm like, okay, I think Dylan will like this. I mean, I think when you stopped by the shop on Tuesday too, we were talking about it briefly. Also that giant size X-Men Storm, dude. Like, let's talk about that too. Like, first of all, my favorite part of that book was the variant cover by Jen Bartel, because that fucking Storm cover is
it's beautiful.
Believable.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Jen Bartel is like, this is one of the moments where I'm like, okay, this is why Twitter exists, like for stuff like this. This is why I'm on Twitter. And she dropped the cover maybe like about 3 weeks ago, and I was blown away. But the thing is, like, aside from that, she's been doing like this Final Fantasy VII fan art that's been phenomenal too. Yeah. Like, she's actually about to do a Kickstarter, and she's going to do her own Final Fantasy VII sketchbook.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, dude. I don't know when she's gonna start it, but
I don't care. I fucking want that.
Yeah, yeah, dude. She's also dropped like a little bit of tidbits of knowledge for like artists and up and coming artists and all that stuff. So like so Jen Bartel is like, I feel like one of the best artists out there. Her work, anything she touches is like instantaneously, boom, you have to get it. But this Storm cover though, it's easily one of the best covers to come out in months that doesn't have like Art Germ's name on it.
And then you don't have to drop fucking $50 to $100 on either, which is the only... Okay, I don't have any of the one-shots of the giant-sized X-Men. I read them all, but I don't own them. This one, I'm like, I want to buy. Because I just want the cover. Like I said, I was going to get the trade because they're collecting all the issues together. Yeah. But this one is like something that I would probably frame and hang up because it's that great. And not to mention that Storm is one of my favorite X-Men.
Agreed. Storm is definitely one of my favorite X-Men.
She's always had great stories, and like when she married T'Challa and she was like the Queen of Wakanda. Like, I really love that aspect of her too, and I think she's, of all the female characters in the Marvel universe, I think maybe she is my favorite.
I think she's the most consistent.
Yeah, she's fucking, the way she's been written over the years and the power of her and the gracefulness of her, you know what I mean? Like, and the way she always carries herself in comics, I think that's just like, she's a very strong, powerful character. And this issue fucking accentuates it in such a magnificent way, dude. I mean, I can't even think of any other way to describe it. Hickman nailed it, dude. He nailed her character in this story.
Yeah, he did.
Dodderman's art, dude. Woo!
I have a power team for like art and colors, right? And Dodderman and Matt Wilson have to be like easily within the top 3 of that combination. Yes. I feel like Matt Wilson hasn't had a break since like 2017. He's just working on everything, like on all from everybody, from all publishers. So like he does the X-Men stuff with Russell Dodderman. Like before that, he was doing Thor. I think he's doing Thor right now too, like with Nick Klein.
Yeah.
I know I know Matt Wilson is like responsible for freaking Paper Girls, like, you know what I mean? Like, this guy hasn't had a break for like years, and I feel like if I can, I want to buy this guy a coffee or something. Like he's just freaking just out there, and like anytime his name is on something, like I automatically am interested. Like his color work, I can easily go so far as to say that Matt Wilson is probably my favorite colorist right now. Like he's just fantastic, you know. But this with the art on this and Russell Dodderman, like, man, he's what could I say that hasn't been said about Russell Dodderman's art? Like, it's things you don't want to miss whenever like Russell Dodderman and Matt Wilson's like involved, you know what I mean? Because there's this like subtle beauty to it that like I can't even think. And not only that, freaking Russell Dodderman, like his skills have definitely improved like over the years, and his portrayal, like especially when they're doing like Emma Frost, Jean Grey, and Storm when they're in those panels together, each woman like distinctively look different from each other. You know what I mean? And I know we were talking about that last week, how, sometimes, there's that thing where everybody looks the same because people would train the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Dodderman obviously has a grasp on facial features, a grasp on these subtle tones and subtle notes, cheekbones, nose structure, all that. So he has a great attention to detail when it comes to that. So each woman always looks different.
And that's something that I really love too. I mean, it's funny because like the first book that I ever read by Dodderman was a Nightwing fill-in issue.
Oh, really?
Yes, during the New 52, right before Dick Grayson became agent of whatever the hell, agent of Spiral or whatever. Yeah, Dodderman did I think he did the last 2 issues or something. And I read it and I'm like, dude, this guy's fucking dope. He immediately was snatched by Marvel. I don't think he did anything else for DC. Just those 2 issues, and then he immediately made the switch. I think he jumped straight into Thor with Aaron. Was actually what he did. And,
oh wow! He went from doing 2 issues of a weird Nightwing story arc to freaking doing Thor. Wow, that's crazy.
I know, dude. But I knew from that instant. Sometimes you just know, man. When you see somebody's work, or you read one of their first projects, or you see one of their first books they draw, you just know that this dude has the potential to do something, or he's about to fucking do something. I had no idea he was gonna. I mean, I thought he was gonna do some shit. I just didn't know he was gonna jump to Thor. So when he jumped on Thor, I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" And then some people didn't even know who the fuck he was.
Yeah, no, he did fantastic work, especially some of his. He does lightning really well. Have you noticed?
Yes, I have.
He does lightning really well. So the fact that he's doing Thor, I mean, he did Thor, and then he freaking did a phenomenal job with Storm. Obviously.
Yeah.
No, and then thunder in their veins.
Right, and then the fucking techno virus, the way he did that too, dude, you know what I loved about the subtlety was when you see Storm in 4 panels and you see her eyes.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
That shit is so dope, dude. It's you have to pay attention. You could easily gloss over that fact if you're not looking at Storm. But there's literally dialogue on the right side being said. But on the left side, if you're looking at Storm, you just see the eyes. I was immediately gravitating towards Storm and holy shit, she's about to fucking blow some shit up, dude.
And then the rumble, the freaking the lettering rumble. Oh, that was it, bro.
Yeah. So far we got Stillwater and then Giant Size Storm X-Men. 2 amazing books. And then let's cap it off. We'll talk about Iron Man real quick before we get into Green Arrow. We read Iron Man, Invincible Iron Man by Fraction. And I just happened to have picked that book and it dropped the same week that Iron Man 1 was being relaunched. So my expectations were extremely high. Okay, look. I wasn't blown away, but I was not disappointed. Yeah, I was somewhere in the middle to where I see the potential and I'm interested to see where this is going to go. I mean, obviously, but Tony's having a midlife crisis pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what I took from it, right? He sells off all his stock, but then he reinvests some of it in there. Then he's what was my favorite part was his new armor, which harkened back to it had this retro feel, but at the same time modernized. And that was all illustrated beautifully by Kafu, who is one of my favorite artists Marvel's got right now. Yeah, agreed.
Fantastic. He's one of the nicest guys on Instagram too. He always responds.
I know. I asked him, I was like, dude, let's do an interview, and I forgot that it had to be all in Spanish. Yeah. And that it could only be written. I wanted to make sure I didn't retread the same stuff I did when we talked about Valkyrie. So I'll probably hit him up maybe towards the end of the arc or something. That way I can kind of ask him a little bit more. But his art was phenomenal.
The suit was actually designed by Alex Ross, and Kafu drew it.
Either way, the art was great.
It's fantastic. I love the street race scene. That shit was dope.
Yeah, dude. And the only one of my main problems, because I've talked about this before. I like Chris Cantwell. He's not. I'm not saying that if he's on a book, I'm gonna go follow him. He's not at that level for me yet. And I'm saying yet because maybe he can get there. his Doctor Doom is I really like it, and it's actually coming back this week. Issue 7 drops. Well, as of the day this is posted, it'll be dropping tomorrow. I have high hopes for this book. I'm not like saying that I don't want to continue reading. Like this is what I do when a new book comes out. If the first issue is not horrible, I will give it a whole arc before I decide whether or not I'm going to continue. This made it so that I'm like, okay, you know what? He's got some stuff going. I want to see where he takes it. It's not like Dan Slott's writing it, which was shit. So,
what I really like about this, like, obviously he's having a midlife crisis, and like this is the topic that is prevalent in some of the stuff we're reading this week. But back to basics. Green Arrow talks about it in Longbow Hunters, but we'll talk about that when we talk about Longbow Hunters. But, back to basics. So he's having a midlife crisis. So he picks up an older car, not like, a European freaking, sports car. He picks up American-made, very little known. It's not like, it's not like he's picking up like a Camaro. He picks up something I don't even remember the name of, right?
Yeah.
And, and then, who does he team up with in this other than Patsy Walker, a.k.a. Hellcat? Yeah,
right? What the fuck was that, dude? I don't know. like that pairing. I asked Nick at the shop because I know he's read more Marvel than me, and I'm just like, have they been a thing? Like, what was that about? Like, at first, like I just saw Redhead, and to be honest, I haven't read Iron Man in so long. I don't know if Pepper's alive or dead, but I thought it was her.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then I found out it's Patsy Walker. I'm like, what the? Like, why? Right. Why her of all characters?
Right, and then I think it has something to do with the next thing I'm about to talk about. I think it's has something to do with the Unicorn. Unicorn, for those who don't know, made his first appearance in Tales of Suspense 56 in August 1964. I actually just recently saw this cover. This is why I had to go look for it. This is when I was going through that collection, right? So
Unicorn.
The Unicorn. The Unicorn.
God. That's horrible.
Yeah, okay, shoots lasers from his forehead.
What the fuck?
Yeah, this is one of those 1960s, 1970s villains that
oh my God,
really didn't make any sense. Like Spider-Man versus the Porcupine. Have you seen the Porcupine?
I've seen the Porcupine. Yeah, it's horrible. Go ahead.
It's absolutely trash.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But you know what I mean? It's like, this is what's back to basics. I feel like, I don't know exactly where Christopher Cantwell is going to take this, but like the fact that he's throwing us someone who like literally is an E-list villain.
Yeah.
like who knows what kind of shenanigans, throwback shenanigans he's just gonna throw back at us. You know what I mean? Like this just opens it up for like, I'm all for new characters, but I'm also for revitalizing some of these older characters, because that's kind of what made older comics fun, right? Because look at the Sinister Six. They're all animals. They all had like some sort of camp to them, but who knows? Maybe he can turn some of these campy older villains, like the Owl, and like turn him into something, and in turn making Tony go into something else as well. You know what I mean? Like the overall sense of this is like, I feel like Tony is changing into a different person, than what we're used to.
Yeah.
He still has the flamboyance. He still has that Tony Stark flair to him. But I don't know. There's something that I caught in this that kind of feels like he's kind of like grounding himself without Pepper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Grounding himself without any of the outside distractions. Because you know what I mean? Like, we saw not a single Avenger in this.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say humanizing, because how do you humanize Tony Stark? He's freaking larger than life, right?
Yeah.
But, he's...
But he did, though. He did humanize him a little bit more. He made him a little bit more relatable. Because we didn't really see him in the costume too much. We didn't see him... I mean... I think he's driving his fucking car or whatever, and he's flaunting his money a little bit, but you know what? I don't want anybody to misconstrue that when I say I wasn't blown away by this issue. I did think it was a solid first issue, and it definitely makes me want to read this version of Tony. But this unicorn aspect you threw at me, dude, like now I'm like, well, dude, what if the unicorn becomes like the breakout villain of the year, dude. And I'm not even joking. Like, what if he does something so... Look what fucking Tom King did with Kite Man, dude. Nobody fucking knew who the fuck Kite Man was, and then everybody was talking about Kite Man. And then if you look...
Hell yeah.
You know what? You know what? And I like that. I like that you said revitalizing these campy characters, because look what Bendis did with the Owl. Like you just said. The Owl was a fucking joke, dude. And he made him some big-ass mob boss who was terrifying in some aspects. And then you look at like Jeff Johns on Green Lantern and what he did with some of the campy villains, like Black Hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Look what he did with Black Hand. Look what he did with Black Hand.
So,
Black Hand was so trash.
Right, dude. I mean, he was a fucking joke. So, yeah, I think it is interesting because if you think about it, right, Iron Man doesn't have like these staple villains. I mean, I guess you could say maybe Crimson Dynamo, maybe, I guess, the Mandarin, but like, it's not like say Spider-Man. It's not like Thor. It's not like Batman or Superman. Like, so if he can take some of these old villains and give Tony somebody different to go after than we've seen him go after in the past, then dude, I mean, that's interesting. I didn't pick up on that. I didn't see that.
You know, like I said, like I wouldn't have heard of the Unicorn if I didn't see that cover before I read this. I saw the Unicorn. I was making fun of it to one of my other coworkers at the shop. Like, look at this, the Unicorn. I remember specifically.
Is that the guy at the end then?
Oh, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, we don't even know. Because remember, he I think the Unicorn was talking about like some weird religious. Oh, I serve the other.
All right.
Yeah, so like it could be anything. Like I'm thinking the Unicorn is a stepping stone to something bigger.
Yeah. Now I want the next issue. Now I want to fucking I want to read more.
Yeah, no, dude, it's I'm ready. I'm readily here for it. Like I told you, like I haven't read an Iron Man since Fraction.
Did you add a Marvel book to your pull?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I'm going to give it until like second issue. I mean, if I like the second issue, then maybe.
Okay, I can respect that.
It's funny. It's like I drop Wolverine, I drop X-Men, but I pick up Iron Man.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, look, dude, I've done similar stuff. I mean, I pretty much canceled almost all my DC stuff and stepped over to Marvel, and I'm just like, you know what? These other books that like I took off for whatever reason, like I just put them back. Venom back on my pull because I'm like, why did I take it off? Really? I mean, I don't have the entire first 24 issues of it anymore because I sold it, but whatever. It's something that I enjoy and it entertains me. Thor, we'll see, dude. I might give him a couple more issues, dude. If he don't fucking do something exciting, I might just trade weight Thor as well because.
Oh yeah, that's what I have to read. I was like, I know I have to read something. I forgot what
it was okay. It was okay. We don't need to get too into it. It's interesting, and then also could also end up being very stupid. So I don't know. The X-Men issue though was pretty dope that came out this week.
I gotta catch up. I think I'm like 4 issues behind on X-Men, so I gotta catch up.
Yeah, I mean you should. I mean, again, I know we've talked about this X of Swords, 10 of Swords, whatever it's called.
Comes out Wednesday. Creation.
Right. I mean, I'm gonna read it. I'm not gonna lie, dude. This issue of X-Men, because I know Nick was saying that he thinks it's spinning out of Excalibur, which is his least favorite X book. Mm-hmm. But I don't necessarily think that that's the case. Mm-hmm. I think it just happens to be that it's focusing on Apocalypse.
Yeah, and
Apocalypse is in X-Men.
Excalibur.
Well, he's also in X-Men a lot because you know what I mean? So this issue of X-Men is kind of setting it up. I don't necessarily think this is an Excalibur-centric event, but, you know, I'll read it. We'll see. I'm not saying I'm going to buy all the fucking issues. If it ends up being good, I'll just buy the hardcover of it.
I've already sold myself to doing that.
It literally comes out the month after the event ends or something, I think.
Tie.
So, unless Amazon is wrong, which it could still be the original solicit from pre-COVID, you know. Yeah. So I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah.
Wait, speaking of hardcovers, all new Wolverine.
Oh yes. You wanted to talk about that. So
what's up, dude? What do you think? What do you think? Tell me. What do you think?
I fucking love Laura.
Yeah.
I finally see the appeal of the character that I did not see before. Not to say that I didn't like her character, I just didn't read her. I never read X-23. My only experience with her was in a few issues randomly of X-Men that I had read in the past.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. You know, it had some great moments. It was, you know, like I said, I read the volume 1 of Tom Taylor. It takes place after, you know, Wolverine dies, and she kind of takes up the mantle. Tom Taylor, dude, he's a hell of a fucking writer. The way he fucking like depicts her as like she's got this same rage inside her, but she's able to channel it differently than him. And he came at it from that respect, and I loved it. I don't want to get too into it because like if there's anybody out there that hasn't read her character or has a preconceived notion of who she is, I want them to go into it like I did with no fucking knowledge, because I had no idea what to expect other than when it comes to a Marvel book, if you tell me to read it, I will read it because I trust your opinion when it comes to Marvel. I don't need to know anything. And I'm so glad I fucking read it. It was, I'm telling you.
Dude, it gets better too.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I can imagine.
Tom Taylor, like, I don't know. He brings out the heart in all these violent characters that makes it that much better, dude.
And he sold me, dude. First issue. I messaged you after I read the first issue in that trade, and I was like, I love this. You know what I mean? Like, fucking A, dude. And then I immediately went online because, like I said before we started recording, the shop doesn't have the other volumes. So then I'm like, dude, they come out with a hardcover of like deluxe editions with like the first 2 trades or whatever. And there was nothing. And then literally the next day, Tom Taylor tweets out, they're coming out with a fucking omnibus collection that collects the entire run. And I'm like, dude, this is meant to be. Like God parted the seas and presented the omnibus in my lap. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, dude, it gets so much better. Like I'm actually still in the middle of a reread right now. Let me see. I think I'm in volume 5. I think I'm about to start volume 5.
Oh, so right at the end.
Just this and 6 that's left. So,
right.
It's and then wait, have you met Jonathan yet?
No.
Okay, you haven't met Jonathan yet.
I love him.
Oh, then you're gonna love Jonathan. And then okay, since technically Tom Taylor like literally introduced a new character in Gabby, right? And throughout the course of it, you start having run-ins with different Marvel characters, and then Gabby's interaction with them. And I just have to tell you, I'm not gonna get into detail, but Deadpool and Gabby have the most adorable relationship I've ever seen in my life. It's like absolutely like you wouldn't expect it. It comes off a little weird, but then like later on they kind of touch on it, and like it's this profound little. It's like a relationship between two people who have been science experiments their whole entire lives.
Yeah, I mean, he humanizes her so much, and he added layers to her that I didn't know even existed. My most recent experience with her is in Fallen Angels from the new Dawn of X line. Yeah. And I now see why some people did not like her characterization in there, because it's nothing like what we saw before.
She's a little more stoic in Fallen Angels.
But dude, there's just so much heart, and just like, you know, I kind of like how they treat soldiers as not people, but treating them as objects, as weapons, kind of as weapons. And I think that was interesting, because like you could like relate that to real life in the way that soldiers are treated. But then he does it through the lens of like her clones she's a clone, and now they're making clones of her. You know what I mean? So like she knows what they're experiencing, watching that, and how just like them being going through a different experience than she did, and how they came out of it, and how traumatized she was through her early life, and how she overcame that and became a hero. I mean, like, there's just so many layers to this story that I would not have expected. I'm not trying to talk shit about superhero comics, but it's very rare when I feel that connection and see those layers in a Marvel or DC book. But when it's done, it just blows me away. And this is a series that, like, I can already tell this is a book I will reread, and that's why I will buy the omnibus. Yeah, it's a book that I'll buy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what I really appreciate about Laura's character is like I feel like she's like literally the only character in the Marvel universe that's legitimately aged. Like, like really aged in real time. Like, you know what I mean? Like when she first made her appearance, she was a preteen, right?
Right.
She was a preteen, and now she's a full blown ass adult. Throughout the course of my reading her, it's always been her trying to find her own identity as a Wolverine, as a person who is legitimately made to be a weapon. But then the thing is, what Wolverine didn't have, she has, and that's a father figure in Logan. Those little flashbacks that Tom Taylor throws in there with Logan in it, and like, you know, those moments you didn't see like in the main comics, those little moments of like, Wolverine tells her, just because you're the best there is at what you do doesn't mean you have to do it. That shit.
Right. Yes, I know. Oh my god. Dude. And then you know what else I loved? I loved how Doctor Strange, the interaction between him and Laura too. Like I don't want to like spoil anything because like I'll really take away from the experience for new readers. But wow, dude, Tom Taylor, bravo, sir, bravo.
Yeah,
he made me a fucking Laura Kinney fan. Yeah,
and that can be said about a lot of people. I know a lot of people that prefer Laura Kinney over Logan, and that's because of Tom Taylor's writing.
I can see that.
I can totally see it, and I respect that because, you know, like Sinya asked me, like, you know, why is Laura Kinney, why is Laura's life so hard? And the best answer I can give her is, you know, she's a Wolverine. Like, you can't put on that mask, you can't hold that mantle without understanding the suffering that comes with it. Like even Daken, when Daken was during the Dark Reign, and he put on the freaking Wolverine suit and took the Wolverine mantle, like he suffered, so he deserved to wear that too. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount of suffering and pain that goes along with having with the responsibility of being a Wolverine that you have to understand. Like, you know, the best there is at what you do, but like you said, you don't have to do it, and there's an understanding to it that you are the best, that you are a literal machine of absolute freaking unstoppable death. I don't know. There's this crazy thing that I appreciate with that. Like, I always kind of saw Logan as like, you know, a Ronin. He's literally a samurai, right? And what happens when you're an immortal samurai and you have no masters, but it's just like you're just surrounded by death, and mostly because it's death at your hands. There's this crazy poetic pain to it that's just like crazy. And you know, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to get into it. I could talk about for hours how like all the freaking poetry that I think poetry and death that I think Wolverine is involved in. But whatever.
But yeah, let's get into Green Arrow.
Let's do it.
Okay, so like I said at the top of the episode, Green Arrow, Longbow Hunters. This came out in 1987. Written and drawn by Mike Grell. The color artist was Julia
Lacquement.
Lacquement. Okay, good.
I think that's what it is. I'm just putting my French edge to it.
Okay, Lacquement. Okay.
We should ask Jen.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask her because this is horrible that I can't say that word. Okay, first of all, I picked this book prior to getting the interview with Mike Grell. This was a book that I had wanted to talk about. I think we talked about it early in the start of this podcast. And then it just so happened that I was able to land the interview with Mike Grell. So I'm like, okay, let's try to have it coincide in the same week. That's why we're doing it finally. That's why it took so long to do it. It's, like I said, started my love of this character, man. Green Arrow is... I like Green Arrow more than Batman, to be honest with you.
I'll be honest with you. This is the first... Okay, when I bought this, you were there.
I know.
So. And this is like way back. This is like a couple years back. Like, you know...
This is like 3.5 years ago, I think.
Yeah. So this is like 3.5 years ago. That sounds about right. It was actually the first Green Arrow book trade I've ever read.
Wow.
I don't know.
I didn't know that. I don't even think I knew. You didn't even tell me that when I recommended. I just like we were at that shop at Spiro's Heroes, and like they had all these old trades, and for some reason as I was looking, that stood out, and I think I just handed it. I was like, you need to buy this.
Yeah, that's exactly what you did.
It is so different than what Green Arrow was prior to this series. Mike Grell, who had done... Okay, look, first of all, let's talk about this. The Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams run of Green Arrow in the, was it 60s, early 70s?
Yeah.
I think. Okay, so I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's early '70s only. But when that series came out, it was groundbreaking. It was unlike anything else that was coming out, and they
It's
touched on
super
a lot of.
progressive.
Yeah, they dealt with a lot of societal issues, political issues in that book, and really humanized Green Lantern and the hard traveling heroes. That was what that
Yeah.
storyline was. And Green Arrow and Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, traveled the country. So that already like took Green Arrow from what he was in the 50s when he was created, kind of campy. You know what I mean? Kind of a knockoff of Batman. A lot of similarities between the two, both human, both unsuperpowered. But then Mike Grell also did a Green Lantern, Green Arrow with Denny O'Neil as well. Mm-hmm. And when Mike Grell was offered this book, he immediately took all the superheroics away. He fucking put Green Arrow, boom, straight into Seattle. Yeah. A real city. Boom. Took his costume. He's like, well, if he's in Seattle, it rains a lot there. So he fucking gave him long sleeves. He gave him a hood. You know what I mean? He made.
In my personal opinion, if you give any superhero a hood, I'm already down. I don't know, something about it. Something about there's that feeling of like, I don't know. It's more relatable because I can't put on a cowl, right? But I can put on a hood. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just this thing I've had since I was a kid, where like hoodies. Friggin' same thing with with superheroes. Hoodies. Like there's this mystery surrounded by it. You know what I mean? Both in negative and positive. It's crazy. I love the fact that they did that. I love the fact that they took away his little pointy hat. And the feather.
Dude.
You know what I mean? Because he looked a little ridiculous. Let's be real. And this is set in the '80s, and they're trying to modernize it. So I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, what I love the most, I have my issues with the hat. Whatever, I don't mind it though, because I just love the character so much, and I mean they brought it back for fucking when Kevin Smith took over. He went back to that costume, But I love the urban hunter aspect of Ollie. And I love, first of all, Black Canary is my favorite female character in comic books. I love Dinah. And I love the relationship and the dynamic between Ollie and Dinah. And that is at the heart of this book. Yeah. Ollie and Dinah. There's no other heroes in this book, man. It's just the two of them. They're not even in costume most of the time. Right. In the beginning. And they're not going after a supervillain. They're going after drug dealers.
And serial killers.
And serial killers, yeah. And it just really grounds the story to where you're like, oh shit, okay, maybe this could happen in real life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe somebody doesn't dress up and start shooting bow and arrows, but I mean, he takes away the trick arrows. And that was another thing that Grell did. He took all the fucking the punching or the boxing glove arrow and the electroshock arrow, the net, all that's gone. He goes back to basics. Just a straight fucking longbow and just regular arrows in that quiver, dude. I love that he did that because it makes it, like I said, like where this could happen in real life, it makes the character a little bit more relatable too, because he's not a millionaire anymore. He doesn't have a bunch of money. He doesn't. Like they're literally, and I love it. They're living above a florist shop. And what do they call it? Sherwood Florist. I love it. It's amazing, dude. And then he even put just the added touch of him hanging up the Errol Flynn Robin Hood thing. Yeah. And it plays on those themes too as well. And dude, I love the character, man. He's not beloved, but he doesn't have a good relationship with the police or anything. And
he's a conspiracy theorist. So my experiences really came from, the Justice League cartoons, right? And he's always super anti-government, super conspiracy theorist. And I always wondered where that came from. But then as I was reading this, when he gets into it, when he starts getting into the whole drug trade stuff, and it talks about it's 1987. So during this is Nancy Reagan's war on drugs, right? That was going on in America. But at the same time, the CIA was funding Contras in Nicaragua to overthrow the government, to get the communists out, and doing all this stuff, all this crazy weird stuff that involved using drug money in America to fund the Contras in Nicaragua. It's crazy. at the time, that concept was like, you're crazy, put, your tinfoil hat and all that, da 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 da. But, now that we see that it was actually happening, like, it kind of like solidifies the character, that aspect of, Ollie's character, where he thinks beyond the veil put in front of us. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. And the fact that, he's a millionaire. So like, I feel like people in a higher class are privy to information that we don't know. It's crazy.
You want to hear something really crazy?
What?
While this book was still in production, this really happened in real life.
What?
The story that Grell's telling at the end with the drugs and stuff and
all that. Exactly.
Like Grell talks about it in the interview. I don't want to get too into it, but like he ends up like the comic book is literally being investigated. This comic book, because they're like, how did you know that was going to happen? And he's like, what are you talking? You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to get into it, but it adds another layer to when you read this, because I read it again after knowing all that. I'm just like, that is crazy that he fucking came up with this fucking story, and then aspects of it ended up happening in real life.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I thought like, okay, well, that's crazy. I thought it was just like, it was already exposed by then. Damn.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is because throughout his Green Arrow run, which takes place after this, he continues to take headlines from newspapers and puts them in his stories, which is again what elevates that book and makes it so great. And like throughout his run, there was no superheroes in there. You know what I mean? There was no superhero elements, and I have that entire run, and it's fantastic, dude. The fact that like Ollie, I love like how he talks about like when he becomes Green Arrow on the island and he has to take a life in order to survive, and once again in here to protect, because him and Dinah are gonna trying to stop this drug dealer, right? Or this like thing that's happening going on.
This drug ring that's happening in Seattle.
Right, exactly. And Dinah goes on her own. But then she goes missing. Ollie finds her strung up. But Ollie could fucking easily take that arrow and shoot the gun out of his hand. He's that good. But what does he decide to do? He shoots that arrow straight through that fucking dude's heart.
Yep.
And he makes that decision. He knows what he's doing. He's he's going for the kill shot because his love is
about to be killed.
And is about to be killed. And he just immediately fucking makes that decision. And you can't come back from something like that either. Yeah. And once you take a life, dude. That's going to change you. And
no matter what.
And it just makes the character a little bit more brutal. And not in a way that like, oh no, we got to make him dark for the sake of it. Like, no, they add that layer because like he's a hunter, man. That's what he is. And it plays that aspect of him. He is a hunter. He needs to hunt. And now his prey is just, it's not animals to survive. It's the fucking vile human beings that are in this world, and he's going to take them out.
I like the progression of it too, because like in the beginning of this, it's a very optimistic Ollie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very optimistic, he wants to have kids. Like that's fantastic. Like he does the whole Dinah thing, proposes to Dinah. But then, like, as the story progresses, it goes into, it changes. Like, obviously with Dinah missing, take away that element from it. Take away, like, the one hopes he has for, like, a normal life. And, it changes him. Even Shadow even says it, like, in their first encounter, you don't have the eyes of a killer. And then later on, in, like, their later interaction, it's like your eyes have changed. You know what I mean? And, like, the paneling, the sequence in the paneling, and, wait. Hold on. Mike Grell, his choice for all these freaking epic splash pages.
Oh yeah.
I think it's one of my favorite things in this book. Like, holy crap! Like, there's just so much going on in these splash pages, but it's not like cluttered. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel too busy. Like, first dons the hood and he's stopping that mugging. Like, dude, it's absolutely something. Absolutely, it's one of the craziest, most well put together freaking splash pages that I've seen in a long time. Easily in a long time.
Oh yeah.
and then the dual storytelling that he uses with his paneling, amazing as well.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, you're talking about the fucking paneling, like just like when we're learning about Shadow and the way she came up, right? And then you talk. There's a page, dude, with well, first of all, where fucking Dinah's strung up. That shit is powerful. And then as he's going to hunt them in Mount Rainier, he does that panel, and it is absolutely beautiful, dude, of the mountains. Yeah. And I think it feels like to me too, like I got to talk about the coloring, dude. It feels like it's a mix of watercolor, but then at times it almost looks like colored pencils. Yeah. It's crazy. And if you think this was out in 87. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of people were doing this back then, dude. Like this is mixed media. I mean, I think Bill Sienkiewicz obviously did a lot of mixed media back then. So I won't say that people weren't doing it. But goddamn, dude, this book is fucking something to behold, man. Oh man, and I love at the end, like even as Green Arrow is taking them out, he realized this is a cookie cut ending, dude. The way he takes them out, it's not just like, oh, okay, we got the bad guy, everything's tied up. No, the dude gets a fucking way, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's not your regular fucking defeat. And what this leads into going forward in the Green Arrow run, I wish we could talk further about it because there are some things that play out that this directly leads from that are just phenomenal, dude. Shadow continues to make her continues to be a presence in the book. She even gets her own little miniseries too. I did not know that. Yeah, no, I was wondering who Shadow was when I was going through the big collection at work, and I was like, "Who the hell is Shadow?" And then I noticed, and yeah, I mean, obviously I knew who Shadow was, but like, she got her own miniseries after this. But yeah, she got her own miniseries after. I think it was 6 issues. Did Mike Grell do it? I don't know. I would have to. Okay. Not important for this conversation, but yeah. I think that we need more stuff like this from the big two because, like, they say, oh man, like they won't do a Green Arrow, it's not successful. Well, maybe if you take chances and do takes like this, look what a departure. If you look probably a year prior to this series or a couple years prior, Ollie was not like this. Yeah, the Green Arrow book would not have been like this, and I think that creators need to take more chances like this. And I mean, we saw it with Daredevil when Bendis took over during the 2000s. Yeah, this is what I want to see more of from the big two. Yeah, I mean, take chances because what's the worst that can happen? Like they don't continue your story arc, or they don't continue your series. Like you get one story arc out of it. So what? Okay, books get canceled all the time. So. Yeah, books get canceled all the time. But the thing is, if you take chances, like I think Jason Aaron did that with Thor. That's why I'm super excited to read this Ghost Rider. It's literally sitting on my desk right now. I keep on eyeing it. Like, man, I can't wait to start reading that. But nice. Look, even what they did with Batman. Look what they did with Batman. Like, I think Tom King's run is absolutely great. Like, you know what I mean? So far from what I read. Like when people push boundaries like that, not even pushing boundaries, but just walking down different paths of a person's character and approaching it like in different ways. Like you said with Zdarsky, like Zdarsky is doing a great job with Daredevil. I think even something more recent. Look at Cantwell. Look at what Cantwell is doing with Iron Man right now. Like he's starting a path. He's starting a path down a different way of telling a person's story, telling a person's character, telling a person's progression. You know what I mean? Because you can't expect these characters who've existed for over 60 years to remain the same. Exactly. And like I think that's probably an issue with say like some of the older readers. Like you know what I mean? For 30 years, a lot of these characters stayed the same. I know. A lot of these characters weren't pushed. Like I think you need to tell stories that are more humanizing. Like look at what the Iron Man's alcoholism story did to the Iron Man character. Well, look what Mike Grell did to Green Arrow. Like in this, there needs to be. You need to give these guys human problems, but have them deal with it in a superhero way. But Grell even does this book without it dealing with it in a superhero way, though. You know what I mean? Like, he just... Yeah. It's almost like he's just like a... You can almost take Green Arrow out of the costume, and he handles it almost like a mercenary. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what I think really appeals to me, too. And I think that's why Green Arrow became one of my favorite characters. Yes, throughout the years, post this series, he... comes back more to DC proper, and he is more with the superhero stuff. You know what I mean? But like either way, like Ollie as a character, I just love. And I forgot to say this when I was talking about Grell's art. There's a page in the third chapter of this book where Ollie and Shadow are both standing arrow to arrow and they're facing each other, right? And then below it's almost like a double page thing because I think you're meant to see both of them at the same time. You see her eyes and you see his eyes in the panels.
Yeah.
And it zooms in on them. And the expressiveness, dude, that he's able to capture with their eyes, like you can see the softness in Shadow and like she's completely calm. And then you see Ollie's eyes, even with his domino mask on, like you can still see like the focus and like the fierceness in his eyes. And it's, dude, I'm telling you, dude, Mike Grell is an absolute master when it comes to his art and his writing. And I miss it, dude. I wish that, like, part of me wishes like that they could give him like one more Green Arrow story, kind of like what they did with Dennis Cowan on Black Label with Jeff Lemire for The Question.
Yeah.
I wish, dude, that they would do a Black Label Green Arrow book and let him revisit it off in its own thing. Let it be its own thing, dude. It doesn't need to be connected to anything. That's my hope, dude, because, like, we've seen enough Batman stories. We've seen enough Superman. Let's fucking see some of the other characters.
I say that all the time. Like, the Trinity needs to be shelved. Trinity needs to, like, they need to break them down to, like, maybe 2 series each or even 1 series each and friggin' let other people shine, dude. Like, DC is sitting on such a treasure trove of properties that they can, like, just take and fly with. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, I want there to be a Deadman Black Label comic. I think that would be fantastic. I want there to be a Swamp Thing Black Label. That'd be great.
Yes.
Like, I want there, I would love to see, like, Dr. Fate get his own, like, little mini. And you don't even have to give these guys, like, full ass runs. You can just, like, just pepper the year with, like, little mini series and see how the fan bases react to it. See what works, see what doesn't, and then let these other characters shine.
I agree, dude. I mean, look what happened with Iron Man. You know what I mean? Like, Iron Man was considered a C-list character.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit about Iron Man. I'm sorry to say, but I'm sure he had fans. Obviously, he had fans. You know what I mean? But it wasn't until the movie that he got propelled, and it's because Marvel took a chance and made a fucking Iron Man movie. You know what I mean? Like, they took a chance on a character that wasn't necessarily in the public conscious eye, but you had an Arrow TV show, but yet you're not. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't capitalize on that. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, it was a CW show. I liked the show. It had its moments where I didn't like it as much, but I mean, like, fuck, dude, that's when you should be, like, promoting the book, but you didn't, and that's why maybe the book didn't sell as well. I think Ben Percy did a pretty good run on the book, but then, post that, it started to dwindle down in quality. But I think that, like, this is a perfect example of you put a good artist on a character that's not necessarily as popular, and you can create magic. That's what Green Arrow Longbow Hunters is. It's fucking phenomenal.
I love every aspect of it. It felt very 80s too. Like, it felt very within its time period. You know what I mean? And we all know how crazy the 80s were.
But it didn't take away from it, though.
It didn't. It didn't. It was more. It felt more so like a period piece. If you were to read, like, if they were going to do like a Captain America in World War II like comic, but they did it like now modern. You know what I mean? It was done now by a modern team. I think that they would try to recapture something like the feel that this Green Arrow run did for the 80s. Because, man, right down to the costume design, the marginal characters in this, the haircuts, like, when they first show that sniper guy that's hired by one of the drug lords.
Oh, Eddie Fires?
Eddie Fires. When they first show him, like, when he's walking into the office, looks like a freaking dweeb. He's wearing like a plaid freaking sport coat. He
ends up being a main character in the Green Arrow run by Grell too. He ends up having he has huge ties. Like, I think they even, like, brought him back in the recent post Rebirth run. I mean, his character's fucking funny too, but he does that. It's to throw people off from how dangerous he really is,
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I love it. See, but look at him. He looks like he's gonna go work on his freaking Linux computer. Like, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I love the feel that this whole entire book gives. It's very true to itself. if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's no extra seasoning, like you said. No extra superheroes. It's literally it's a crime thriller with the guy that happens to use a bow and arrow. Yep. And I love it. And I'm so glad that 3.5 years ago you told me to pick it up, and I did.
I know. I'm so glad that you did also, and I love that you have that trust and faith in me that I'm not going to steer you wrong. So yeah, that always makes me happy.
It's kind of like how I felt about like all new Wolverine. I'm like, dude, you got to read it.
Yeah, and I had always planned on it. Like I said, I just was weary of doing it when I was like, fuck, am I going to be able to finish it, or am I going to have to like search for it online? But the omnibus is coming out, and also if you are interested in this book, like we've just been talking about, it is available. It is in print. I'm pretty sure you can find it probably on Amazon, maybe if it's not at your shop. I know that they did or are going to release an omnibus of Mike Grell's run. I'm not sure if it's available or not, but this shouldn't be too hard to find. I think you can even find the issues on the cheap. It's not too expensive on, like, let's say mycomicshop.com. But if you are interested, I highly recommend this book. This is one of DC's best, and in my opinion, it's an essential DC read. Yeah,
I have to agree. Well, I'm actually going to try and read the Kevin Smith run pretty soon.
Let me know when you want to do it, because we'll do an episode.
All right, hell yeah. Maybe we can get Kevin Smith on the show.
Yeah, I'm trying, dude. I'm trying.
I know. I keep on saying it in hopes that the universe will hear me. But yeah.
Why don't we do an off-the-shelf episode after you read it, and we'll go through my absolute on camera.
Oh, yeah.
And then we could talk about it that way instead of just doing it on the podcast. Because I was planning to do the absolute edition. And I would love, since you haven't read it, to be able to get your opinions while doing that video. If you're down.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great idea.
Okay.
That's a fantastic idea.
Awesome. So yeah, that's our thoughts for Green Arrow.
Go pick it up. It's awesome.
Yes, do that. And do you want to talk about real quick before we get out of here, maybe what we're excited for this week?
I'm excited for Kanto.
Okay.
You know, that the issue 2 comes out next week. That's a good one. But there is that Irredeemable by Mark Waid omnibus coming out next week. Like, have you ever read Irredeemable or?
I haven't. Or Incorruptible? No, I have not.
Oh, dude, that's like my first experience with Boom Studios.
I know. I've heard nothing but good things about it. So.
All right. So actually, I have a story about that. So okay, I've never heard of Boom Studios prior to this, right? Like. This is, I think this is like 2009 or 2010. This is like right around the time the Walking Dead show was starting, whatever. And I got a call from my buddy who was interning at Boom Studios. He's like, "Hey, I'm working Long Beach Comic Con. We need someone to come work it." So I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll go help you." We're working the Boom Studios booth at Long Beach Comic Con. And they're like, and my buddy was like, "Dude, you got to read this." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, it's by Mark Waid." Like, I've been helping out Mark Waid at his house, and he like freaking gave me a couple free trades. So, like, what? Like, what do you mean working at his house? Like, no, I've just been helping him like move stuff. He's moving, so I'm helping him move. I'm like, oh, tight. So he gave me some of the Irredeemable books. Blown away. Holy crap! Like, it's definitely a twist on the whole Superman mythos, and changing it and flipping it and turning it into something like, wow, it's just great storytelling, dude. Like, it's
I'll definitely check it out.
It's pretty crazy. Like, holy crap! Like the Plutonian is the guy who's supposed to be the Superman character in it, right? And they literally turn him into this like fucking dickhead. Like, holy shit, you fucking hate him. But at the same time, like, you see what motivates the reasons he does these things. Like, doesn't make him a good person, but it sheds light on that. It's such a good read, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have been meaning to check it out. Now it's a little bit easier to do so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think what I'm most excited for this week, but also sad at the same time, is Joshua Williamson's run on Flash is ending. Also, he's doing a death metal tie in speed metal, which I heard is going to also kind of be a capstone on his Flash run, I think, in some way, which is kind of weird considering that's taking place technically, I guess, well, it's not happening in the Flash book, what's going on in Metal, but either way, I'm pretty excited for that. And then you got an Immortal She-Hulk coming out with a badass Daniel Warren Johnson cover, which
yeah. Immortal She-Hulk.
Then you got Daredevil. You got fucking the new Goddamned issue 3 is coming out, and then another Venom. So I'm pretty stoked on this week's books. It feels like it's not a huge week, but it's got some good stuff that I'm excited for. So
yeah, it's there's a lot of cool stuff happening. Like I'm really excited for the week after though. I think.
Is that Shang-Chi week?
Yep, that's Shang-Chi week.
Yeah, that week's massive, dude. That week is gonna be fucking hell at the shop.
That week's massive. We have Wonder Woman. We'll talk about it next week, but it's huge.
It's friggin' huge.
Huge. It's a very long book. You hear the comment. He read a book. He's like, oh yeah, I read the whole book. It was very long, 486 pages. I read the whole thing in one night. I'm like, damn.
Oh god, what a dumb fuck. Okay, yeah, but that's all I got. You have anything else you want to say before we get out?
No, not that I know of.
All right, cool. All right, well, that's been another episode of the Comic Lounge podcast, your usual shenanigans and comic talk with myself and Dylan.
Hey.
Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Comic Lounge. Throw your comments or suggestions down below, or you can email us, thecomicloungepod@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether it's YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, iTunes. Hit the subscribe button or the bell icon so you're notified every time a new one goes up. And on that note, we're out.
Later, buds.